I am the voice you hear on snowy evenings and snowy mornings. That's what I'm most known for when I go and visit our schools, which I do often. In fact, I was at Vernfield earlier this year. One of the fifth graders said, I'm a meteorologist for the school district. I am not, but I am the superintendent of schools. This is my sixth year as superintendent, but I've been in the district since 2001. I'm proud this school district. I love this community. We work together to solve problems. Make sure that children are learning. To begin tonight, I'm going to introduce a couple of people part of the presentation. First, our school board president, Ken Keith. Donna Shuren, our vice president. Janet Lissek, school board member. Bill Brom, the longest serving school board member. Matt Holliday, school board member. Tom Kwiatkowski, school board member. And Nick Braccio, school board member. To my left is my cabinet administration, Dr. Katie Riley, instruction and assessment. Megan Wyback, our director of people services. Ryan Pauling, our new director of business affairs, and he's doing a fabulous job. And Dr. Chris Hay, our assistant superintendent. To my very left is our administrative team. Many of you know that your child's principals or your child's school or assistant principal. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Keith to begin, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Dr. Gallagher. Thanks, everyone. You got probably hear me say thank you a lot tonight. So I mean that. I mean it so much for thank you for coming out and supporting your school, and just your presence tonight lets us know you support what's going on. A couple quick questions before we start the evening, just simple show of hands. Raise your hand if you're a Souderton area school district taxpayer. Well, it's good to see, I expected that, but I wasn't sure. Raise your hand if you're a Souderton area school district non-taxpayer for some reason. Anybody? And anybody out of the area that's a taxpayer in another school district? My over-under that was 3. I thought I'd get 3, but there weren't. To everybody that raised their hand the first time and everybody else, again, a huge thank you. Here's the reason why. You guys are the owners of the district as taxpayers. You're going to hear some things tonight around our funding model, around our budget. Keep in mind, 75% of the dollars it takes to make this district go around come local. They come from local sources. They don't come from the federal government, they don't come from the state government, they don't come from Harrisburg or Montgomery County, they come from you folks. So a tremendous thank you for supporting what we do. We'll get into that a little bit later today, but thanks for participating with that. I have to realize I'm a better door than I am a window and not stand in front of this. So let me move over here. Some goals for the evening. What tonight isn't, we're not going to do a deep dive per se into any given topic. We're not going to spend all night giving you all the line item details you might see in the budget. That's not what we intend to do. We will give you a very well-rounded view, I think, of what goes on in your district. We're going to talk a lot about a lot of those areas here in a few minutes. I'll give you some highlights and some things to focus on. But that's just the one thing I just want to set that expectation early in terms of what you're not going to see. Anytime we have committee meetings, the second Wednesday of every month, you're welcome to come out. We talk about budgets, we talk about operations, we talk about curriculum, we talk about every aspect of our school district, and you're certainly invited to attend that, and you're certainly invited to attend our monthly meetings, which are usually the last Thursday of each and every month. Before I go too far, one housekeeping thing I did forget. We are seeing with the fine folks in the back that we are taping this for later rebroadcast on TV. I think it's channel 28, channel 46, 28 if you're on the Comcast network, and 46 if you're on Verizon. So if you want to see what you missed or have a chance to look, please do avail yourself of that opportunity. So format, tonight's logistics, we're going to walk you through a couple of the presenters Dr. Gallagher spoke about. Again, share with you a fairly high level, but hopefully deep enough to give you information on what it is we want to communicate with you and hopefully spark a few questions. Question and answer period, how we're going to handle that, as you might have seen, there's a table in the back, Dr. Gallagher, correct, with some paper. If you have a chance, please go back and write down a question. I will say up front, we intend to run roughly an hour and 15 minutes tonight. If we get a lot of questions, it's a good opportunity that we won't get through those, to be honest with you. If we don't, we'll make sure we bring those back, and we'll make sure each one is answered. We'll probably put something on the district website. You can click on the link, see notes from the meeting, and see answers to all those questions. So I apologize up front if we don't get to all your questions, but we certainly will answer those without fail. If you want to stop by and see us after the meeting, we'll be around for a little bit as well. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Some highlights. This is where I get to steal people's thunder. So some things I want you to think about when you think about the Souderton Area School District. There's a lot that goes into our district. We talk about this idea of the whole child, the whole community. And it really is a community. It's everything that our boroughs, our townships, and our serving areas bring that comprises that community. But when I think about what goes into a school system, we all think about the basics. It's all about learning. It's all about math and science and writing and English. It's a lot more than that in our district, as it is in many other places as well, but we take special pride in what we do here in Souderton, and today we're going to walk you through that. Some highlights for tonight: we're going to talk about academics. I would expect you would anticipate hearing about that. We're going to talk about athletics and why that's important to our whole community. The arts, we're going to talk about student life and student achievements. Dr. Gallagher is going to speak to you shortly. We're going to talk about safe schools, technology, student success, and fiscal responsibility and budgetary challenges. I want to touch for 1 minute on the last three. Safe schools. I went to Souderton Area School District quite a while ago, and I went from kindergarten all the way through. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud to be a part of this community. But for me, safe schools was the tornado slide was out of service when it rained. That was like our big worry when I went to school. And probably for many people in this room, by the nods I'm seeing, that was probably your big worry as well. You can't go a day, guys, without turning on the news and seeing something either horrible that was averted, thankfully, or something horrible that happened. I can tell you this: we focus heavily on trying to make sure that your kids come to school, are safe at school, and go home in the safest fashion possible. We can't predict every scenario. I can't stand here and tell you that's the case, but I can tell you this: we have done so much to make our schools safe, and we're going to share that with you tonight, that if you rewound just 4 years, as Megan Zweibeck is going to talk to you about, we were probably the crazy ones, so to speak, where other districts are saying, wow, Souderton, that's pretty aggressive. Why are you doing that? Those districts are calling us today saying, hey, can you come talk to us? How did you do that? We should have done what you did 4 years ago. Not because they're having a problem, but we looked at the problem differently. We anticipated some of this coming. We worked with our local folks, our state folks, our federal folks. We worked with Harrisburg, we worked with Washington, and we saw the writing on the wall, and we try to prepare for that the very best we can. So you're going to hear a little bit about that tonight. Technology and student success. 1-to-1 ratio is what we're heading to. That means for every student, they're going to have one device, a tablet, a Chromebook, call it what you will. That's a big change. Again, when you think about when we went to school at one point in time, we had books, we had paper. We still have that today, but with the advent of technology, it does a few things for us. One, it expands what we can do with the student and how we can educate them, so to speak. Dr. Kennedy Riley is going to speak to that. It gives a child something they haven't had before. You missed school one day, you have to wait till the next day or call a friend. Hey, what did I miss? I can log onto a portal and see what my son or daughter missed in school today. It's a great way to use technology. And frankly, I think we all agree, technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to become more and more a part of our lives. And while it's disruptive at times in our lives, it's certainly something Souderton embraces as well. And last but not least, fiscal responsibility and budgetary challenges. Towards the back end of the slide deck tonight, you're going to see more and more about that. I will tell you this: I've been doing this now for 10 years in this district. That's, I think, a fairly long time in board terms, if you will. And when I first joined this board, I was eager to learn about the budget because I always thought there's a better way, there's another way, there's some other way to do it. And I will say this board and this administration combined have found a better way to do it, have found a more efficient way to do it, have challenged the norm. But when it comes down to it, the bills are the bills. You got to keep the lights on. You have to pay your staff. You have to pay for health care. You have to pay for things that are planned. You have to pay for things that are unplanned. And when you really boil it down, any board in the state of Pennsylvania has about this much, I don't want to call it discretionary, but discretionary control, meaning not a hard cost that you have to meet. These are costs that we have to live up to, and there's about this much, saying a little facetiously, of costs that we have a little bit of flexibility. So when you think about that tonight, I want you to keep that in mind and realize that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room when it comes to school budgets, when it comes to school finance, but there is some, and we take the most advantage of it. The last thing I'll leave you on with this tonight is, I mentioned it's not going to be a deep dive, and it won't be. It's going to be a very good cross-section. I hope you take a lot from it. I hope you have questions, and I hope you follow up with us. But keep one thing in mind. Whether it's the budget, and leaving here saying, I didn't know that, that's really interesting, I want to follow up. Whether it's you didn't know all the great things that go on with our students, you didn't know how our community's involved, but walk away with a couple of what-if scenarios or a couple of why questions and take some time and reach out to us, and we'll give you some answers. I just want everybody to be informed, and I think the best way to do that is through a dialogue of Q&A. So that's all I got. I'm going to turn it over to the more interesting people in the evening, which is Dr. Gallagher and his staff. And again, if you have questions, please write them on the paper. We'll collect them, we'll answer them, and we'll be happy to stay afterwards and spend some time if needed. Thank you.
So that's the map of our school district, and we are one of the largest school districts geographically in Montgomery County with 49 square miles. And you'll see the makeup of our district, how many schools we have. We are up to 24 languages spoken in our schools. 24 languages spoken, that's incredible. And you'll see the percentage of the different groups: English language learners, gifted, special ed, and economically disadvantaged. So we're proud of our school district, and we have a lot to do with growing diversity in our school district, which is something that we have opened our arms for and help to help all kids. Points of pride. First, before I get into this, our students are so engaged, not only in their learning, but also helping out in the community, wanting to do good things, wanting to achieve. Just on Friday night, our students, Souderton at the high school, which was a community event as well, our students raised over $60,000 for childhood cancer through Peter Powerhouse. $60,000. So that's why I get so humble about what we do here, because that doesn't happen everywhere. But having said that, some of the points of pride this past year, our girls soccer team won the state championship. That was exciting that Saturday out in Hershey. Our high school got the Charlie Allbach Award from the Chamber of Commerce for the work that the high school's done in reaching out to businesses through the Career Pathways program. We're just about finished with the EMC project, the renovation and expansion of the project. How many EMC folks are here? You have a full-size gym and full-size cafeteria and some beautiful new spaces, and we're very proud of that, and this board was very committed to making sure that got done. With the tennis continental championship winner on the left there, this day is Alex's Lemonade Day at Oak Ridge. Again, an example of how our students engage and support other people. This is the senior prom, not the senior prom, but the seniors prom that was held over at Generations. Our students organized that. This is some STEM activities that you're seeing at the middle level. This is the award the district got last year for Unified Sports and Special Education. The National Special Olympics Committee voted to have Souderton one of 4 high schools in the country to get the Unified Sports Award. That was a big deal. Tim Shriver came out. We had a big celebration at the high school for that day. They're the students that started that. They're the students that participated in it. It's a wonderful program. Here is Book Blast from Franconia Elementary. Every summer, some of our elementary schools do a book blast where they call the kids to different locations, to parks, to the pool, community pool, and they get books to read, and then they get to trade them in a few weeks later. Our students and faculty continue to collect food for Keystone Opportunity Center's food pantry. It's a big initiative. In fact, I think it's currently just wrapping up for this year, and Keystone always tells me they couldn't keep their food bank open if it weren't for the Souderton School District. Because we do this yearly big drive, but it's all year long. Our student groups are collecting food for the Keystone Opportunity Center in downtown Souderton there. So with that, we have a lot that we do here when it comes to curriculum and instruction and assessment. I'm going to call Dr. Kennedy Riley, who is in charge of this division and does a lot of work with our principals and our supervisors to make sure that we're providing the right program for our students. So with that.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out, and as Dr. Gallagher and Mr. Keith indicated, I'm going to share some information about our curriculum, instruction, and assessment. The challenge is there's a lot of teaching and learning to try to think about what should we share. So we have about 10 points of highlights this evening to kind of showcase some of the areas that are of special interest right now, things that are developing, and areas that we can really discuss. So right here is a Wordle. It's a word cloud. It really takes all of our courses and program of studies, K through 12, and kind of just creates this little visual for us to think about. And Mr. Keith referenced it about when we think about our own education and the courses that we're offering. You know, we might have had home ec, typing, you know, of course your English language arts, we probably called it reading and writing at that point, social studies and science. Well, today that word cloud, the courses offered K through 12, is changing. as our society is definitely changing. We have in here 3D animation and video. We have exterior design, English as a second language, government and politics, human geography, digital media, introduction to coding, art courses, music courses, counseling courses. There is just so much that is provided in that K-12 program of studies for all of our students to access. A big focus is at college and career readiness, even beginning in kindergarten, knowing that we're preparing our students and our children for what's to come next. And we want to make sure that as they go through the K-12 opportunities, that they have that plan post-secondary, whether it's going into career or going into a college. So again, this evening we're going to go through a few highlights of the work that's being done in curriculum instruction and assessment. Again, at the end, happy to share any of those specific questions. On my personal side, I'm a mom of four children, and this year I find myself in a unique situation that I have an elementary, a middle schooler, a high schooler, and a first-year college student. So definitely that personal life mirroring my professional life and those challenges that we're all facing and opportunities as our kids grow up through, K through 12. So here we have our comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan kind of helps focus us for the next few years, specifically for the next 3 years. We're definitely a whole school, whole community, whole child perspective. We heard that already being said, that in our schools, we're really looking to make sure that we're addressing our students' academic, social, emotional, all of their needs, so that they can be the best learners that they want to be and go on to those opportunities that await them. So we have 2 goals this year for our comprehensive plan. One focused on healthy and safe. So here at Souderton, we'll ensure that all students access learning in a healthy and safe school environment. And then the other one, that to ensure that learning opportunities are engaging, supportive, and challenging. And that is our goal for all of our students through all of our buildings. So I'll transition here to a few of those highlights. A few years ago, we started SAST Next. Again, coming from our comprehensive plan to ensure that we're engaging and supporting our student learners. And the vision definitely included technology, but was not technology alone. It is really giving voice to our students and giving choice and opportunity and experiential learning for our students in K through 12. As you know, with your kids at home, they come up with lots of suggestions. Could I do it this way? I could make you that. Could I show you this video production I do? So therefore, through SAST Next, we really wanted to empower our students to be able to contribute, show us, demonstrate what they're learning in many different ways. And our students are very active in that. They share with us. We have focus groups that we meet with students throughout the year to get additional feedback. So that really drives how we do a lot of the work. With SAST Next also, as Mr. Keith referenced, focused on moving to a one-to-one environment. That's in 6 through 12. So 6 through 12 students do have a device with them throughout the day to help support their learning. The goal of that was not to make sure that they were on that device every minute of the day during the courses, but to use it purposefully and relevantly when it makes sense. And that's where students need to have that access so that they can provide additional opportunities or contribute or produce something different than they would have been able to do with just paper and pencil. So not a replacement, but really to do things that they couldn't do before. And having that always available to them is a great asset. That being said, we also have a lot of technology in our elementary schools as well. We have iPads, we have Chromebooks, we have Winbooks available throughout the school building so that students can also access different ways of learning and different ways of also giving feedback. So through our SAST Next vision, a big emphasis on the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking is ever present in that, and that's what we want to see in all of those courses, whether it's our art courses, our family consumer science courses, or our math courses, or our science courses. The importance of making sure that our students are communicating, collaborating, being creative and critical thinkers throughout all of those contents is extremely important. As well as the importance of our digital citizenship that we also work with by making sure that when we're giving students technology that we're also helping them understand how they use that tool. Moving to the other side of the slide here, measure of academic progress, math is a new assessment that we put into place this year. It's an assessment that we chose to participate in and implement, and it's a robust system. I like to compare it to when I go to the pediatricians and they do your height and weight for a child and they map them on that trajectory and to see where they are, from where they were before and where they're headed. That's what math assessment enables us to do with our students on reading and math skills. It's a test that shows the achievement and also the growth. What are the students ready for? It really celebrates the growth of the students as to where they were before and what they're ready for next. A teacher and a student and a parent can use that information to help provide some goals, set some conversations, and conferencing with the student. Again, this is a new implementation, just started in the fall. It's a big system for everyone to learn. Actually, the bottom picture there shows some professional development with our teachers to learn what that system is and how we utilize that system throughout the school year. And as we go through the spring and then open for next fall as well, there's information that will continue to come out about math assessments to provide additional information for families, and then also for how we can use this as a powerful tool to help our students achieve and grow even more. The next few highlights here, we'll start with the middle school schedule. Coming up for the 1920 school year has been a proposal for a new middle school schedule, and I'm going to just give a few highlights over what that looks like and some changes that will be felt throughout that schedule. The intention of doing the middle school schedule was definitely to respond to the developmental responsiveness of our students. That transition from 5th to 6th grade was a big part of the conversation as to what are we doing and how can we maybe do it different or better to support our students, and then also respond to some of the opportunities throughout the middle school to increase opportunities for our students for related arts, for music, and things coming afterwards at the high school. So the day begins with all students 6th, 7th, and 8th grade beginning in Focus. It's a new block that will be provided every day for 30 minutes. One day of the week in Focus will be for advisory. That is the importance of our whole child, making sure that we're addressing the social and emotional learning and needs of our students and providing them guidance and support in those areas. And then the other days of the week is really where the students will get what they need. Some students might need some intervention, some might need some extension, and some other opportunities will be provided. But this is a school-wide, all-hands-on-deck support for students to begin the day. Moving on from there, as we go to the 6th grade one at the top, you'll see that, well, you might be able to see, it's a little tiny there, but our ELA and social studies, and then our math science. What we've done is, we had multiple teachers on a team. In the new schedule, in 6th grade, it'll be a 2-person team. So a smaller group of students, roughly 50, will be shared among 2 teachers. One teacher will be the ELA social studies teacher, and the other teacher will be the math science teacher. That provides a greater transition from the elementary school program to the middle school to be a part of a smaller learning community, providing better support for our students. Then throughout the day, they'll also have their related arts schedule happen, so they'll have 2 different related arts every day, and the opposite day will have an additional 2 related arts opportunities. I failed to mention that the schedule is based on an A-B block. So one day will be an A day, and the next day would be a B day. So that's where it will be different with your related arts. You'd have 4 different related arts per semester. Then we move on to 7th grade. 7th grade is very similar to 6th grade, except for the fact that our teams now grow. We no longer have a 2-person team, we grow more to a 4-person team. Somebody different will be teaching you ELA, somebody will be teaching you social studies, some teaching science and math. So there's a little bit more variety of your teachers. That team grows in 7th grade and 8th grade. In 8th grade, the unique feature of the new schedule, is a STEM offering. We have historically offered our world language credit to begin in the middle school, and that will continue. So French and Spanish are an option for students to take in the middle school, but now they'll also have the opportunity to take a STEM course. So if they would like to choose the STEM course instead of the world language, they would have pre-engineering and intro to coding, and that would be their opportunity. That would be done all year long, every other day. So a student option is to have a STEM course or to have a world language in 8th grade, both which would count for their credit at the high school. So again, our middle school schedule is an exciting opportunity based on a lot of student feedback, teacher feedback, and we are ready with the supports to continue our academic excellence and developmentally responsive, socially equitable, and organized structure to provide that new schedule for the upcoming year. Aside from that, you'll see the full-day kindergarten feasibility study. That is one of the goals of our comprehensive plan, and that work has begun to do the feasibility study, the research, talking to other districts who have made that move, and what that would mean here at Souderton. So there's more to come on this. This is a work in progress, and over time that will be shared, additional information will be shared. Underneath right here, we have the Indian Valley Ed Foundation, a great partner in our teaching and learning at Souderton. They help to provide lots of opportunities for our students, from flexible classroom seating to just last week we had a dedication, we had the groundbreaking for the greenhouse, that will be located at the high school, which will provide a great opportunity for students to learn in the greenhouse setting and the connection and extension to our science courses, and also additional labs. So the Indian Valley Ed Foundation is a partner with us as we go through our teaching and learning opportunities in all 9 buildings. Next, we're going to transition to some of the work at the high school. So at the high school, we have Pathway 360 program. It is, an amazing program that our high school has to offer. When students arrive at the high school, they have already heard about Pathways, and they've been working through that with their guidance counselors at the middle school to plan the path that they might want to take. And a path going towards what do they want to do in a career? What might be something that they're interested in doing? In doing a pathway, it does not mean that they're only in one path, that they can't be flexible. They absolutely can be flexible. They can change their pathway during the course of their time at the high school. At the high school, through Pathway 360, students are able to take advantage of doing job shadows. They do mentorships. Oftentimes in our student groups, they share, I did a job shadow and I learned I never want to do that job. Or I did a job shadow and I absolutely love that and I want to pursue that even more. So through our Pathway program, we've really had an opportunity to open up partnerships with business and industry and get our students involved and really thinking about what's to come next, their career and college goals, and where they're headed on their pathway. With that, and in conjunction with our middle school schedule, we have expanding STEM education and computer science. That has been part of our goal. We have a STEM committee, K through 12, over the last few years, really looking at where are we doing STEM. STEM exists in our curriculum, and really making sure that we're having those conversations and pointing that out to make sure that everybody is aware. STEM is the science, technology, engineering, and math. So therefore, in our middle school schedule, you heard that there would be a STEM course. Through the high school, there are STEM opportunities as well, and really making sure that we're embracing what our partners in industry are sharing with us as to the importance and making sure that we're preparing our students for those opportunities. That being said, we have many, many partnerships. Great opportunities within the community, local area to get our students out there to do job shadows or just to participate in different opportunities. They go off campus a number of times. We have people come in. Right there you can see that they visited Channel 3. Towards the end over here we had the Secretary of Ag, Russell Redding, come out to meet with our students and learn about our Pathway program and also be a partner with us. So whether it's in our local community or regionally or statewide, bringing and taking our students in and out to provide the best opportunities. We also have that for our teachers. This year we were granted the Teacher in the Workplace grant, and that helped our middle school schedule and our opportunities for our teachers to also get out into the workplace. So that was a great opportunity for us. We're going to transition a little bit into information regarding how Pennsylvania shares the information about how schools are doing throughout the Commonwealth. You might remember about the school performance profile in the past. It was also called SPP. It gave a numerical value for how a school was doing on a scale that was roughly a 100-point scale. So we are moving, the state is moving away from that single point of information to a dashboard focus. So Future Ready PA Index was just launched in the fall of 2018, late November. And if you haven't gone on there, and if you have gone on there, you can see that it's very robust. There's a lot of information within the Future Ready dashboard. And I'm just going to take us through a very brief overview of it. But it's a dashboard approach. It's moving beyond the single summative score, and it's the purpose to illustrate student and school success with a more comprehensive look at the school districts or at an individual building. And the purpose is for continuous school improvement. So right here, right there is what a dashboard would look like when you log on to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. If you just Google Future Ready, it'll pop right up. Again, it was brand new to the state. And I'm going to take us through what the high school Future Ready dashboard looks like. It's not a live view, I just took pictures of them because again, it is a very robust system and there's a lot of data in there. But just for an overview, if we look at our state assessment measures on the dashboard, we will see across here our English language arts, our math, and our science. And this top bar here would be our local performance. So as you can see in English language arts, the high school scored an 87.6%, which was above the state average. And then you can just go across. So math, and then also science. And it's that comparison to people the Commonwealth can see from school to school how everybody's achieving, how they're growing, and the importance of meeting the statewide average, and then additional goals coming up. The next view we have here continues on that dashboard. Again, there's many places to click. We go to our college, our career standards benchmarks here. So at the top, again, it's a lot of information. We have, and this goes really strongly to our pathway program, that we are very focused on college and career readiness. So as you can see, we have 100% participation and achievement in that area, and our graduation rate is down here, again, above the state average. And then our final thing over here would be our industry-based learning. Students who are participating in industry-based assessments throughout the year. So Future Ready is a brand new site. All schools in the entire state are located on there, and it's by building. So each individual school is a part of it. And that is the new plan for the state to report how well a school is doing. So again, a lot of information within the Future Ready, and that could have its own conversation. So, to wrap up for our curriculum instruction and assessment, we just want to share the different opportunities that we have, again, since we were landing there on the high school. At the high school, we have 25 varsity sports, we have 15 junior varsity sports, 2 freshmen, lots and lots of clubs and organizations, and as Dr. Gallagher said, Souderton just recently, what an amazing opportunity, and that is coming from our students. Our students are motivated, they're driven, they give the suggestions, and they run with the opportunities and the support that the staff also provides for them. Our college placement, for 2018, we had 80% who were headed to 4-year, 2-year, or technical trade schools. We had 1% enlisted in the military service, and 19% entering the workforce. We also have students at the high school who participate at North Monto Technical Career Center, where they have amazing programs to provide for our students, over 22 career technology education programs in 8 different career clusters. They have dual enrollment opportunities, statewide articulations, and our students are doing amazing things at North Monco as well. So, all in all, teaching and learning, curriculum instruction and assessment at Souderton Area School District is very dynamic, it's growing, it's definitely being informed by our students as to what it is that they're ready to move on to, and also our industry and professional partnerships as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. As you can see, there's a whole lot going on. And one thing that we do in Souderton is that we're constantly looking, how do we do better? What are we not doing right that we should look at and fix? One of those examples is the middle school schedule that's coming out next year. Another example is the feasibility study for full-day kindergarten. That's really important to look at that. As our population and demographics change, we got to keep ahead of that, and the board is committed and the administration is committed to make sure that happens. Our next topic is school safety and special education, and I'll never forget my first year as superintendent driving to work, and our board president at the time called me and said, hey, do you know what's going on? And I don't text and drive, and I try not to look at the phone at traffic lights. Sometimes that's not avoidable, and I don't always have the news on in the morning. It was that morning where the worst mass murder in Montgomery County history happened in our community, in the borough of Souderton and in Harleysville. And they were one of our students' family, 2 families impacted. It was an awful, awful time. I think those of you who are living here remember those days. I knew then it really stretched our first responders. So it was really challenging, and we have great police departments that we work with in the state police. But that day took every resource of Montgomery County and focused on those murders, because if you recall, the perpetrator was not found yet. And I immediately knew that I had to come to the board and start thinking differently about safe schools. And I knew that this board would listen to me, because right after Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut, God bless those families, the board made a commitment to redoing every entrance of our schools to create the secure vestibule entrances that we all walk into every day. The next ask was, took a couple years to happen, but we implemented our own police officers and hiring our own employed police officers. And since then, we just continue to update Safe Schools, and Safe Schools is an area where you can never stop. You can never stop practicing. You always have to be prepared. The other part of Safe Schools is being proactive. The increase in mental health that you hear about nationwide is happening here as well. And children are facing trauma like they never have before, and we have to make sure that we're helping those children and those families be resilient and persevere through those very challenging times. With that, we're very lucky to have Megan Zweiback, who was our former supervisor of our high school special ed. She's now Director of Pupil Services, and she's also the designated Safe Schools Coordinator to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So she's our Chief of Police, we call her. So with that, I'm going to call, actually, Dr. Hay, her partner in crime here. And Dr. Hay will start out and then turn it to Mrs. Wybeck.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. I get to introduce you, Mrs. Wybeck. So I'm Chris Hay, I'm the Assistant Superintendent here. Dr. Gallagher and I were actually hired on the same night back in 2001, so we've been working together for a long time. And I'm really proud to be a part of this school district. I wouldn't want to work anywhere else. And I know we have a lot of our employees in the audience tonight, and I know most of them feel exactly the same way. When it comes to school safety and security, there's a few things we need to be excellent at. Keeping our kids safe, obviously. Making our buildings secure, as Dr. Gallagher referenced. And also being proactive, so that we're in front of any potential threats, so that we can prevent scary things from happening in our buildings. When it comes to keeping kids safe, I think that's one of the things we do very well here, is our schools feel like a home, and kids feel safe at home when they're in our schools. You've probably felt that if you've been in our schools as well, and that's on purpose. We work really hard with our staff. We're very intentional about creating positive climates and good school culture in our schools, so the kids feel like it's a safe place to be, a place where they want to be. It's not like a clinic or an institution. When it comes to security, a lot of stuff we've been doing for a long time. Visitor identification. If you've been to our schools, you've got to scan your ID and run into our Raptor system. Secure vestibules that Dr. Gallagher referenced, that started with our high school 10 years ago, and we've been added every single school since then. School security, we've had security guards in our buildings for 20 years, and we continue to add more. Now we have them here at the middle schools as well. School police, our police officers are actually with us tonight, Officer Gower and Officer Deal. Thank you. Round of applause for them. We're lucky to have them. They both have worked in law enforcement all their lives. And with the leadership of this board, we were able to bring them on, starting with Officer Gower back in 2015. And that wasn't easy. It's not just post a job for a police officer and you have a police officer. They're school police officers and not school resource officers. They don't work for the township, they work for the school district. That means petitioning the Court of Common Pleas and the state. They're subject to the same training standards as any other police officer. School board had to adopt policies to enable them to work here, because law enforcement has different standards than school administration. But we're glad to have them, hoping to have more. Child abuse reporting. Every single one of our employees has been trained in recognizing and reporting the signs and symptoms of child abuse. Some things we're doing this year. One thing is we do social media monitoring now. So we have this system that monitors social media, tweets, and so forth, to see if people are saying threatening or risky things online. Safe to Say program, you'll hear more about that in a moment, where a kid can, with an app on a phone or with a phone call, make a report about something that's frightening to him or her. And also the ALICE protocol for responding in case there's an intruder, so that our students and staff are being trained in that. Some of the next steps, we do want to add additional police officers and security guards. We've applied for a grant to help fund a new school police officer, hopefully for next year. We're also implementing threat assessment teams, so that teams of security, police, and administrators and counselors in our schools, if there's a threatening situation or behavior, they can make an assessment of that and deal with that problem again before it becomes something more tragic. We also want to upgrade our radio and video surveillance systems to be consistent with what law enforcement uses in the 800 megahertz band, and also so that our law enforcement locally can patch into our video surveillance system in the event of something they would need to respond to. So again, we've been doing this for a long time. There's legislation in Harrisburg that was passed this summer that's very helpful in this regard. A lot of money went this way, and our board has supported these efforts in the past to help keep your kids as safe and secure as possible while they're in our schools, so they don't have to think about this, because that's not what they should be thinking about while they're in schools. So we can get to the business of educating them, knowing and assuring you that they're safe. Now I get to introduce our Chief of Police, Megan Zweiback, who's also the Director of People Services. She's going to talk some more about some of these initiatives.
All right, good evening. Welcome. It's nice to see all of you here this evening. I want to go and give you a quick overview. Dr. Hay has already provided a little bit of it, but give you an overview of our school security team. I'm at the top there, I'm the Director of People Services, and then our two police officers, Officer Gower and Officer Deal, who are in the back, are also members of that team. And what's really nice about these two guys is that they're everywhere. So they're often in our buildings during the day, but if you come to a community event here or at any other building, at any time of the weekend, in the evenings, you're probably likely to see them. So they're wonderful to work with, and we touch base on a probably daily basis about all sorts of issues that arise. We also have 3 security guards. And one is at the high school, one at each middle school. And that team is also communicating on a daily basis, and then they work with our building level teams very closely. So they're monitoring things like behavior and the kind of usual things you would expect, discipline, that kind of stuff. But what I love about this team is that they also feel very strongly about proactive strategies. So you'll often see them making connections with kids out in the hallways, in the classrooms. They are, like I said, at sporting events, and they pretty much know everyone by sight. So they're true believers in that making good connections can be a prevention strategy for our kids. All right, if you're a parent in this district, you have probably heard the acronym ALICE this year. It is something that we began training on last spring. However, your children first heard of it this year. And it is our active intruder response protocol. We chose ALICE. There are a lot of programs out there. We chose ALICE because they have a very, as you can see, the I'm not scared, I'm prepared, that's the cover of their book. They have a very elementary approach and an option for that, and we felt very comfortable with that as a district. You know, training for these things and talking about these kinds of things can be very scary, but I'm very proud of our building leaders as they've all gotten trained in ALICE, and they've really taken it upon themselves to roll it out in their buildings in a way that's comfortable for their teachers and their staff, and comfortable for their students. So what ALICE stands for is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Now, what this does is it gives our teachers options in an event. So rather than the old way of doing things, which was there's an intruder or something bad is happening in the building, we're going to lock the doors and huddle in the corner, that's no longer the only thing we do. That is one choice of something you could do, if that's the appropriate choice in the situation you're given. But you can also counter, you could decide to evacuate the building. And so when I've gone around the district and talked to our administrators and the students who have been trained in this, they really feel like, while this was scary to think about at first, it's really, in the end, empowering for them. So that they have a choice of what they need to do if there should be something happening that's not safe in the building. Another program that if you have a student in grades 6 through 12, I hope you may have heard about, is the Safe to Say Something program. And this program really came about a large batch of legislation in June around school safety, and it is a new program mandated by the Attorney General's office. So any school in the state of Pennsylvania with grades 6 through 12 is required by law to train their staff and students on how to use this program. It is a 24-hour tip line focused on anonymous reporting of any concerning things going on. The training really focuses on anti-bullying and suicide prevention and signs of possible threatening behavior. The tip line opened in January, however, we just did our training in March and we are up and running and receiving tips. It's been very good. Our students have made tips about things like bullying or other students or friends they may be concerned about. We're required, we receive those tips, we have a training team in the district to receive them. It's myself, our police officers, and then some of our building administrators. And what we do is we receive the tip and then we kind of triage it in the moment. So we may have guidance meeting with the student, or we may have an administrator meeting with the student. We receive these tips 24 hours a day. So we're lucky we haven't received too many after hours, but we have received some at night. And in that case, the legislation allows us to share information with the police. So if something concerning should come in at 2 in the morning, the police would be calling me, and I'm permitted to share information by the law for Safe to Say. The other interesting aspect of the Safe to Say program is it is run and designed by the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation. So they run some of these 24-hour tip lines in other states as well. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears from school safety. I also handle the special ed department. So, that's where I came from. I used to be the special ed supervisor at the high school, and I'm very proud of the programs we have in this district. We have, as they mentioned earlier, almost 17% special ed students, which is about 1,150 students with disabilities. We operate programs from kindergarten all the way through age 21. And we do we meet a variety of needs. So we have anywhere from a full-time emotional support program in our district, we have autistic support, we have life skills support, we do all sorts of things to meet a variety of needs. And you can see in some of the pictures there, we also include, we do a lot of programming, especially at the secondary level, for after-school activities. We believe that equal access and inclusion from beginning to end is really important. And finally, I just want to highlight one special ed program that we're particularly proud of. 5 years ago, we started a program called the STAR program, and it is a job experience program for students ages 18 to 21 with disabilities. And they, prior to us starting it, they were going out with the Montgomery County IU. They were having job experiences all over the county. And it was costing a lot of money for them to be traveling all over for job experiences. So we decided, you know what, with the Career Pathway program at the high school, it felt right for us to design our own job experience program here in the district, and we could save money while doing it. So 5 years ago, we started the program. We had 10 students and 1 job site, the Souderton Mennonite home. This year is our 5th year. We have 18 students and 8 job sites. We've had 10 students graduate from this program and go on to be employed in a competitive setting. And it's overall just really improved our transition outcomes. But most importantly, our students are back in our home community getting their job experience here. So they're getting to know the people they see every day in their settings, and then they're also really making connections that can kind of carry over into their adult life. So we're very proud of that. And that's it.
Thank you, Megan. And Megan's being humble because when she started that job experience program with the board support, it saves initially $400,000, and today's figure would be almost double that. So we have students that work at the district office through that program, and they actually do really do a lot of good stuff around the community. So thank you for sharing that, Megan. So budget and finances. So this all takes a lot of money to do, $130 million about. And in Souderton, the bulk of that is on the local taxpayer. So we're sensitive to that because we have all kinds of people in our community. We have retired people, we have young families, empty nesters whose kids just maybe left for college or graduated college and are off to their careers or not. But that's what we have to represent. But we also want to make sure that we're doing the best for students. So to balance this all out, we go through a very thorough budget process, and it begins in the October of every year and wraps up at the end of June. It's a long process. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Pauling to come up, our Director of Business Affairs, and the two of us are going to just tag team some of these slides, but he's going to talk about revenue and expenditures, and then we'll talk about where we're going, where we've been, and where we're going.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. As Dr. Gallagher really did a great job summarizing, the budget process that the administration and the school board put together every year really starts in October and works all the way up through June until we pass our final budget. And even beyond that, once we enact the budget, then during the fiscal year that we're in, we're always looking for ways to save money and make sure that we're running as efficiently as possible. So what I want to do tonight is kind of summarize and talk about how do we fund the programs and the initiatives that we talked about in tonight's presentation, all the great things that we're doing in our schools with curriculum, with school safety, with special education. How do we fund those things, and what does that look like with the revenue that we're getting in and the expenses that go out when we run a $127 million organization every year? So as Mr. Keith talked about at the beginning of the presentation, the bulk of our revenue is funded by local sources. Comes from the community. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like compared to other school districts in the state. But most of the schools in southeastern Pennsylvania are funded at a similar level from a local perspective. Because of the demographics and the way that the communities are set up in southeastern Pennsylvania, the bulk of the funding comes from local sources versus state and federal sources. So in those local sources, the primary funding of that is from real estate taxes, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works in a minute. But we also get some other sources of tax revenue. Our interest revenue comes in through those sources. And then from the state level, we get money through the Department of Education and through the governor's budget and the state budget that's enacted every year. We get money for basic education, special education, transportation, and then we get some reimbursement back for some of our benefit costs that we'll talk about when we get to expenditures. And then we get about 1% from the federal government, and that goes to some pretty specific initiatives like reduction of class sizes, enrichment in math and reading. They're called Tyler programs, so we get a small amount from the federal government that goes toward those programs. So comparatively from the state, you can see Souderton and most of southeastern Pennsylvania are funded at that 75% local level. If you look at some other school districts, just kind of a sampling from around the state, up in the northeastern part of the state, Berwick area, they're only 45%. So demographically, it's a lower income area of the state. So they're, as far as formulas go, they get calculated at more revenue that comes in from the state. The northern part of the state, southern Tioga and Tioga County, is 47% and 51%. You have Hermitage out here in Mercer County, that's 61 and 38. And then you have Canton McMillan, which is a school district that's a suburb of Pittsburgh. They're closer to ours, and you do have some suburban Pittsburgh school districts that are close to southeastern PA. But if you look at the state average, it's about 60% local funded and 37%, with the rest coming from federal sources. So Souderton Area School District in southeastern Pennsylvania is primarily funded by local sources. So you can see comparatively how we compare to other districts in the state and what the statewide average is. So, as I said, the biggest generator of revenue for the school district from local sources is real estate taxes. There's a calculation when I put the budget together every year. We take the entire assessed value of all the properties in the district, we multiply it by the millage rate that's enacted by the board of directors every year, and that sets up our real estate tax revenue every year. So when we have years where our assessed value grows in the district, it helps to drive our revenue naturally without having to impact that millage rate. But the millage rate sets the second part of that equation as far as what we need to maintain the programs from our school district from that local perspective. So real quickly, without getting too far into the details, the green line on this chart is what's called the Act 1 index. So back in 2006, the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the legislature enacted Act 1. And what that did was it set a cap on what school districts could raise from a percentage basis their real estate tax amount every year. It's based on two statewide economic indicators, similar to an inflationary type of formula. And that's what it sets the Act 1 index every year. So that number for this past year, the current year, would be 2.4%. But you can see historically, if you look at the last 5 years, the Act 1 index has been right around 2%, and the tax increases from a percentage basis to the prior year that the board has enacted every year has been well under that. So it's a credit to what we've been doing as a district that we've been able to maintain these great programs while being fiscally responsible to the taxpayers in the district. And I'll let Dr. Gallagher talk a little bit about some of the history, since it's my third week and I wasn't here to know what that is. So.
Thank you, Brian. So I lived this history, and if you go back to that spike of the 4.87 tax increase, we were coming off the impact of the recession. Real estate values were going down. It's the whole economic story of our country, to be honest, and we were impacted here in Souderton. And the board came in and we worked together to get those increases reduced, as Brian illustrates here. But to do that, we had to make tough decisions. We closed Lower Southford Elementary, which our demographics were going down, and we didn't really need all these schools. We, with our teachers union, negotiated a contract where teachers took freezes and decreases, and administrators took freezes in salaries. We did a lot, and we did have to make some difficult decisions in other areas. For example, freshman sports. But I'm proud to say the board and the administration have now worked together. We added 2 freshman sports last year, or that are starting now, softball and baseball, and we are adding 2 freshman sports next year. So we're slowly adding some of those programs that we had to reduce back into the budget. But to, yeah. So I'm not going to take questions right now because we still have you can ask your questions through back there. Okay. So with that, we have to get away from the spikes, and that's what you can see, that we reduced the tax increase. As you can see, we did have to go back up a little bit last year, and we'll probably be in between those numbers this coming year. But that's the history here on the tax increase. Again, Brian illustrated that we only get 20-some% from the state. And just in Montgomery County, we pay the most in property taxes, we pay the most in income tax, and we pay the most in sales tax, because in Montgomery County we buy the most because of our population. It's the largest county population-wise other than Philadelphia. Most of our money never sees it back to Montgomery County. It's most of our income tax and sales tax stays in Harrisburg and gets distributed across the state. As you can see, these are the average tax increases across the region. Souderton is 0.95%, is the lowest. Quakertown's the highest at 2.7%, and everything in between. And Brian's going to talk about expenditures.
So the second side of what goes into the budget every year is what we have to spend, those revenue resources to run the school district every year. So being a service organization, the primary mission of the school district is to educate students. It makes sense that the bulk of our expenditures go towards salaries and benefits. So this will go, you start up here and go around the circle, and you follow the colors. They'll go in line with that just so you can follow. But salaries make up 42% of our budget. And retirement is the next highest at 14%. We'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. Then we have medical benefits we provide to our employees. Debt payments, think of that as your mortgage of your house. 8% is what we spend on that. That's in what we call a bond issuance when we put bonds out there, and investors will buy our bonds because they are able to do that at a tax advantage, and that's what helps to fund our long-term projects. So we borrow money over a certain period of time to make sure that the buildings are being upkept over that time period. Our special education costs without salaries and benefits, so everything else that it takes to run our special education program without what we pay our staff makes up 6% of our budget. And then we have our transportation costs, Social Security, that's another benefit that we pay out towards, it's a requirement for our employees that we pay our employer share of Social Security. Our charter school tuition costs make up about 3%. And then the other, so the other category, it's not that those things aren't required to run the school district, that's just the other things that it takes to run the school district. Some examples of those are professional services, so things that we might be able to get services for our students from an outside source that would be cheaper than us doing it internally. We pay for those things. We pay for tuitions to like our career technology school. We have to buy supplies and books, equipment, and utilities. So like we said earlier, we have to make sure that we keep the heat running and things are making sure the lights are on. So there's three things I want to call mandated costs that the school district is required to pay, either through a school code or another piece of legislation from the state. So these are things that we have to pay regardless as an operating part of our budget for the school district. So the first that I want to talk about is charter schools. So I wanted to illustrate by looking at this baseline year of 2010-11. The reason I picked that, so you'll see the line on the left is blue. That's revenue that we received from the state to offset some of our charter school costs. And back in 2010-11, we got almost $500,000 from the state to offset about $2.3 million in expense that we paid out to charter schools. And the way the charter school expenses work is, based on our actual expenditures as a school district, we calculated tuition costs for a regular ed and a special education student every year. And then if those students decide to go to a charter school, we pay that tuition rate to the charter school. So in 17-18, in last year's fiscal year, you can see our expenses now over $4 million, but you'll see this revenue is missing. The state cut that out of their budget after the 10-11 school year. So you can see, as a school district, our costs are going up from about $2.2 million to over $4 million during that time frame, but we've stopped receiving that subsidy from the state. So we're picking it up totally from a local level. So that's what I wanted to illustrate with that. From special education, you can see our cost in total, so this would be salaries and benefits and everything else that it takes to run our special education department, went from a little over 15 million to about 22 million. So what I want to highlight in this particular item is, if you look at the revenue from the state, it's pretty much flat. So again, these are costs, the delta between those two fiscal years over that 7-year period is being picked up at a local level because our funding has been pretty much flat from the state. So just to illustrate that, if anybody saw the governor's budget address at the beginning of February, there was money that he's been consistently putting into school districts every year. There was $50 million allocated for special education increased funds coming back to school districts statewide. Souderton's share of that $50 million would be about $130,000. So an extra $130,000 on $22 million of expenses, you can see it really doesn't go far. We appreciate the extra money, but you can see again, any of those increases then go back to a local level. And the third one is retirement. I won't get into the details of what happened with retirement costs. There were changes made to the retirement system for school employees back in the early 2000s that the state and all 500 school districts in the Commonwealth are trying to catch up on right now. From an expense standpoint, we went from a little over $2 million to now up to close to $17 million. We do get half of that reimbursed from the state, but just from a percentage basis, that $17 million equates to about 33 cents on every dollar of salary that goes out on the school district. Again, that's mandated, so we're required to pay that cost as a school district. So again, we get half of that reimbursed, but you can see the difference just to illustrate how that cost is going up, and what, again, we've had to pick up on a local level as part of that. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gallagher to talk about some grants that we received to help offset some of these costs that we have.
Thank you, Brian. We have been very aggressive in going after grants in Souderton in the last couple of years. Megan mentioned the Act 44 the school safety grant, $25,000 for safety equipment and training. We wish it would be more, but it's something that at least we're guaranteed now, and we did advocate with our local legislators to get this funding put into the state budget. We did also apply for the PA Safe Schools grant, $60,000. That's over a 2-year period for a school police officer who's standing in the back of the room. Teacher in the Workplace grant is for middle school teachers to get out into the workplace to see what's happening out in the workplace, and they can turn that around to the instruction they do during when they're teaching middle schoolers. Career readiness, the PA Smart grants, $35,000 for computer science in our elementary schools and our middle schools. Career readiness mini grants, $5,000 for the elementary. That helps with different career awareness activities that we're doing at the elementary level. And finally, the biggest chunk of money comes from the Indian Valley Education Foundation, $232,000 all of last school year and so far this year. And Ruthie Potter's the executive director of the Ed Foundation, and she's a big supporter of our schools. This supported technology initiatives, middle school science, libraries, and the biggest one right now is the foundation raised most of the dollars for the greenhouse that's being constructed right now at the high school. The rest of that money is coming from the SAVE organization. So this is a point of pride for us as well. So having said all this tonight, one of our partners in budgeting and financing is Mrs. Shern, Finance Chair and Vice President of the board. I'm going to ask Mrs. Shern to come up here and talk about budget philosophies and legislative efforts. I am the legislative chair of the Montgomery County Superintendent's group, and Donna is our school board representative of the Montgomery County School Board's Legislative Committee. So together, the two of us work closely with our legislators to get things done and advocate for our schools. So Donna?
Thanks, Frank. So I'm out of hand, so I'm going to use the stage here. I was doing well, but now I have a tickle in my throat, so the water's going to be close by. And I have my notes, just in case, as I'm concentrating on not coughing, I don't lose my train of thought. So, zeroing in on zero-based budget. The primary goal of zero-based budgeting is to ensure that our spending aligns with our comprehensive plan goals. We shifted it to a much more detailed evaluation of our programs. We looked at competence as well as cost efficiencies, and essentially calculating return on investment. Anything that had a positive return was prioritized for funding, and anything that wasn't cutting it was either reconfigured or eliminated. It forced us to be creative with our personnel scheduling, and we increased our operations efficiencies. We funded capital projects without borrowing, and as Megan indicated, we brought contracted services back inside in order to have considerable savings year over year. All of this allowed us to save money and lower taxes, which you saw in the earlier slides, showing our tax history. Just as students going off to college look for scholarships and additional revenue to help offset college tuition, so is the approach that we use by the board to help offset the expenditures in our budget. By going after a multitude of grants, we're able to increase our winning percentages, obviously. In addition, by partnering with the Education Foundation, it has allowed us to promote opportunities to our local businesses, offering them tax incentives as well as state offerings that benefit them and our schools simultaneously. In addition, one of the benefits of this community is having a school board made up of business professionals, inclusive to insurance vice presidents, focusing on risk management and contracts, as well as vice presidents in human resources, banking, manufacturing, medical associates, program directors, and entrepreneurs that own their own business in a diverse fields of construction. This experience allows us to bring budgeting knowledge from the private sector into the public sector, and it also comes with a number of professional business contacts as well. The district is a $130 million a year franchise, and therefore needs to be treated and run like a corporation. Thus, our superintendent / CEO, Dr. Gallagher, understands the philosophy of the board and also embraces the budget mentality. Take, for instance, the last bullet there, the Grandview Health. That partnership allows us to remove the line item of our athletic trainers and or physical therapists on the fields for all our sporting events. Grandview has approached us for a $500,000 proposal, payable at $100,000 a year for the next 5 years, for them to have the privilege of being our go-to service for this particular need. So not only are we removing the line item in our budget, but we're also getting the donations from them for the next 5 years to help offset the cost of other programs in our line item budgets. That's a very impressive partnership, and certainly it allows for a business relationship to develop for them to improve on their advertising and marketing within our community. So my hat's off to the administration for being able to seal that deal for us just recently. Meeting regularly with our local legislators is really key to the success of our district. With all that they have on their mind, it's important for us to keep the needs of Souderton in front of them so that we can advocate for everything that we need. And this community has been phenomenal whenever we've asked you to rise to any occasion, either for or against new legislation coming out of Harrisburg. You've always been there. We're in this together, and I applaud you for all your enthusiasm whenever we need your help. Keep in mind, however, our local legislators are important, but it doesn't stop at the state level. Certainly our influence goes to the federal level as well. For when Congressman Fitzpatrick needed guidance on safe schools funding as well as mental health funding, he came to Souderton. And in retrospect, he used our cost model as the federal guideline when he went back to Washington. On the previous slides, Brian and Dr. Gallagher outlined our increasing unfunded mandates in charter school, as well as special education funding and pension costs. Those are certainly 3 areas that challenge us every year on the budget. We are working tirelessly to try to get that charter school reimbursement reestablished, but it is no easy task. In many ways, we feel that perhaps we need to change the narrative. In other words, maybe it doesn't have to be universal funding across the entire Commonwealth, because that would take forever. Maybe in retrospect, the high-performing school districts like Souderton can be rewarded for their academic performance and see that in the form of charter school reimbursement from our legislators. You have to admit that would be one way for all of us to win. Moreover, we are slightly seeing success in our pleas for basic ed and special ed funding to go through the new funding model. Though it be minor, it is small increases. And that brings me lastly to our photo there of Dr. Gallagher. I was fortunate enough to be able to accompany him when he testified in front of the Pennsylvania Senate, in front of the Appropriations Committee, and explained our budget philosophy related to Senate Bill 1341. Upon completion, the senators asked if it was possible to package Souderton's governing model into a format that could be sent out and distributed to all the school districts across the Commonwealth. More importantly, it was suggested that our governing model become the format that the entire state budget uses. I would ask to let you have that sink in for a minute, because that's a pretty powerful statement. Being considered for the model that all school districts and the state itself uses is the direct result of the entire board thinking outside the box. You don't have to look far to understand how much this entire board has the Souderton community in mind in all their decision making. We self-imposed a cap of no more than 6% of our budget to be held in the general fund balance. This is separate from any capital funds or medical fund balances that used for building maintenance and such. If you take a look at our neighbors, Lower Merion has 56 million sitting in its fund balance. Abington has 40 million. Springford has 25 million. North Penn has 40 million. Colonial School District has 31 million. Happer Horsham has 18 million. And Upper Perk has 14 million. I could obviously go on and on throughout all of Montgomery County. When compared to Souderton's 6 million. These school districts are sitting on massive reserves, which many consider to be overtaxation. Yet they continue to raise taxes to the Act 1 level or higher. That's not the way we operate in Souderton, hence the reason we're the only school district to receive accolades from Harrisburg on our sound fiscal approach to budgeting. In any case, I thank you for your attentiveness, and I yield back to Dr. Gallagher.
So a lot goes on, and we have a lot of challenges, and yes, we do have to relook at decisions made. That's important, very important. But moving ahead, as we wrap up the school year, which is hard to believe, mark your calendars, lots of things to go. Obviously, the culminating activities, graduation on June 10th, Dr. Verano, right? June 10th. That's always a secret until we get through the snow season. This coming Thursday is the open show for Mary Poppins, our high school musical this year. It runs from Thursday through Sunday. Coming up later in the month is Challenge Evening of Sharing, where our gifted students share their projects. This picture depicts 5th grade outdoor school for Southern Hills. They always go up to the Camp Meadowland and spend a couple days up there with some engaging learning activities. This is West Broad last year, towards the end of the school year, where they get to pick out books for summer reading, right, Mrs. Heffian? And this is Scholars Banquet at one of the middle schools, but the Scholars Banquets are coming up in the month of May at the 3 secondary schools. This is National Honor Society, which typically happens in May. This is coming up. This is Special Olympics. We host Special Olympics for the northern part of Montgomery County here at our stadium at the high school. I believe that's May 20th. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is the Harleysville Fair. And the teachers always do a dunk tank at the Harleysville Fair. So come on out and support the JCs. And our choir will be performing at the April 17th Businessman Special down at Citizens Bank I don't know who the Phillies are playing that day. Mr. Keith, you probably know. The Mets. Okay. So these are some of just a sample of the events coming up. And also, you have a few more days to get to the public library where our Youth Arts Month display is happening with all the visual arts that we do here in Souderton. Like I said in the beginning, this has been an incredible journey that I've been on, and I'm with fabulous people that do it. Our elementary principals, our high school principals, and assistant principals, and our middle school principals are amazing, and our central office staff, and our teachers. We collaborate very closely with our teachers union. They are critical to making sure that this entire organization moves forward, both educationally and fiscally. They've been a great partner with us. So, having said that, our school board is really the governing body of this organization. School board members are the only elected officials in the Commonwealth that do not get a salary. They do this volunteer. They spend many hours away from their families because we know they do because they're with us. So I want to thank them for what they do and the guidance and leadership that they provide to our organization. We work closely together, we debate topics, we brainstorm solutions, and we move forward for the betterment of the organization. But at the end of every meeting, we reflect, and all we want is the best for our students and families. And if we don't think we're doing a good job, we go back and we look and we fix that. But I want to thank our board members, and I want to call Mr. Keith up here to wrap up the evening.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gallagher, and thank you, everybody, for your patience tonight. I know we went a little bit past that hour and 15 minutes, but I hope it was informative for you. It was certainly informative to us to get the questions and understand things. A few takeaways. Mrs. Shuren mentioned legislative advocacy. Something we do a lot of, and I would encourage each and every one of you to investigate it and do it as well. It is terribly important to let folks in Harrisburg and Washington know how you feel. Your tax dollars are being utilized based on their influence, and more than their influence, the laws they pass. I'll be the first to tell you as a taxpayer in the same district, I don't agree with a lot of them, frankly, and I don't agree with what I have to do. We have things called unfunded mandates, and they're just that. They're unfunded and they're mandates. You have to do it this way. It's prescribed. It may not be the best for our area, but that's what we're obligated to do. So please do strike up a conversation with them. I think I've met them all by now, the new ones, the existing ones. They're great people, they're folks just like us, but they need to hear from you. We've asked this community to reach out before for House Bill 97, about a year or so ago, and in 2 weeks, this community rose up and shut that bill down flat in Harrisburg. You have the power to make a huge change, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. 1, 2, communicate, ask questions. As you saw tonight, there's questions, there's communication from us to you, you to us. It's a dialogue, guys. We're all in this together. As a parent of kids in the school, somebody that went through the schools, I'm just as invested as you are, and I would encourage you to reach out. I see you in the grocery store, the home improvement stores, the pizza shops. I love the questions. Please do keep them coming. We'll do our best. And the last thing to leave you on today is I hope you got a lot of information on what we do. And I really hope that there was something you learned that new. Whether it's something that provoked a question, or whether it's something you said, I didn't even know we did that, let alone how to pay for it. Think about this as you go from here tonight. There's $127.3 million in the current budget. A lot of money to say the least. But if you think about all the things we would want to do, that budget would probably go up by 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. So every time I get a great idea and I want to implement it, I have 10 more people standing behind that person saying, what's it going to cost? Some things you can't put a price on. End of the day, everything has to cost something. So it's a very interesting balancing act we do as a board, as administrative, and more importantly to you folks at the 75% level funding this entire organization. So I thank you immensely. I hope we give you food for thought tonight. And one last thing I'd like to thank is the students. We spend a lot of time with their 6,500 kids that come to school each and every day and work their tails off to be great in art, to be great in math, to be great in sports, to be great playing the violin. As a parent, I'll be the first to say it's frustrating raising kids, but thank them. They work really, really, really hard. We might pay the bills, guys, but those kids are fantastic. They're great people, and if you don't remember this, or you haven't thought about this, remember this one thing. They're the folks going to be taking care of each and every one of us in the future. So I think that little pat on the back might go a long way 20 years down the line. With that, I thank you immensely, and I hope you come out and see us again. Thank you.